Performance Marketing Podcast is kindly sponsored by Nicks and Kicks, the low-calorie, no added sugar, vegan-friendly drink with a zing. At Target, we always have a fully stocked fridge of Nicks and Kicks as a healthy and tasty refreshment for the team. Try it yourself today in a Co-op or Waitrose near you, or you can buy it online at nicksandkicks.com. Stafford, first guest on the Performance Marketing Podcast, so who knows which way it's going to go.
Privileged.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose just to sort of set the scene really, so your background is 20 years in email marketing and marketing. It'd be great to learn a bit more about sort of how you got into it and how you sort of developed your passion in marketing and your journey so far.
Well, obviously I started very young. 20 years makes me sound really old. No, it was. I've been going, this is our 20th year this year, so the agency started in 2003. My background was, my degree's in business and marketing, so that's how I started off. And I was working for, a couple of other companies, and particularly using marketing to support the sales team, lead generation type of thing. And I was introduced to email marketing very early on, about 2001. So it was still very kind of early in the email marketing world, comparatively speaking. And I was using it very much in a B2B context. We were using it as a tool. I was sitting down with a salesperson each day and writing them an email to their top 100 targets they had, and I'd write it very specifically for the sector and the region that they were operating in, and we were selling IT services contracts, so they went between sort of £100,000 to sort of £4 million contracts. They're fairly big B2B contracts, so it's not like selling tubs of face cream now or things like that, where you can make very quick purchases, quick decision making. This was about how do you get in front of the chief technical officers of some very big companies, and it was, I think, partly because it was a novelty in those days. We could send out an email, it was targeted, we could see when they opened it, when they clicked on a link, and we were working on the basis that the chances are if they've clicked on that link now, if you pick up the phone and give them a call, you'll probably get through their gatekeeper, you'll probably be able to speak to them. Because it was a novelty, it was working, and it was a far more intelligent way of doing it than using cold calling that they were doing before, where they'd have a call centre of someone making 100 calls a day and maybe getting through to 3 people because they're just like, hello. This was very much around ringing 2 or 3 people a day, period, and having good conversation with them and probably walking away with 2 good leads, good appointments that they could then follow up on and develop it. So, in 6 months, we generated, I think it's just over £1.6 million worth of revenue off the email marketing support that I was giving the sales team. So I went from being this little wet behind the ears graduate in the corner to suddenly, we need to take him out for lunch and we need to do this and do that and the other. So it kind of grew from there, and I was getting taken out for lunch and it was wonderful. But I was too green to kind of negotiate commissions and things like that with the sales team. And after a while, I was being seconded out to partner companies that were selling equipment like computers. And our company was giving them me as a resource, half a day a month, a couple of days a month to sell. If they sold more equipment, they would then, by association, sell more services.
Sure.
So I sort of thought, there could be something in this. There are all these businesses out there that could afford half a day, a couple of days a month of email marketing resource, but they can't afford someone full time because it's too big a risk. It was too early days. It was too pioneering. So various things happened and took the opportunity to kind of go for it. And so I was 24 years old, whatever I was back in the day. And I guess when you're that young, you've got no mortgages, you've got no dependents. You can make those decisions. So I thought, well, I'll try it. Let's see what happens. Because what's the worst that's going to happen? It doesn't work, and I'll go and get a job somewhere else. 20 years later, I'm not employable by anyone else anymore. So.
And do you think, obviously, now emails as a marketing platform has withstood the test of time? Channels and platforms come and go, but email seems to be an ever-present, something that's fundamental for people's marketing strategies, and by all accounts is the highest ROI channel, which is probably an accolade at Durang that you can shout about. Do you ever see that changing, or do you think what's the reason for that? And is it because obviously you need performance marketing to win that data, that first party data, but is it what are the reasons that email generates such a high ROI for businesses and brands?
Well, obviously, I love to be wearing that badge of email marketing's got the highest ROI, and that's all we do. I mean, that's what Durang is. Durang's an email marketing agency, and all we do is email marketing, and we work with a whole range of businesses now, 20 years on, B2B, B2C, all across the UK and in Europe. And of course, email marketing has become a lot more accessible to smaller businesses now, where when I first started, it was only really accessible to those people with the budget or the databases, and you needed someone or an agency to do it for you. Whereas now with MailChimp and Campaign Monitor and things like that, lots more people can do it themselves. They don't need an agency to help them. When you start to get up to a more sophisticated level or bigger budget or higher stakes, then that's when you work with people like us or like yourselves, where you want that, that extra specialist support. But it has become more mainstream. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's a perennial favourite amongst the channels. And we have heard a lot of noise over the years. When I remember 2011, around 2011, social media was really starting to make a big impact. There was a lot of noise going on. We were worried there was a plateau in email marketing volumes, and social media was this new kid on the block who was going to knock email marketing out of the park, and that's it, that's the end. And as a business, we were getting concerned, and we were starting to hedge our bets and starting to look at other digital services we could provide if this was going to come true. But as it's happened, social media's come in, it's got a really positive space within the world and culture, but channels come and go and platforms come and go. And laws and legislation change. It's a bit like the Wild West. What's happened with Cambridge Analytica and data profiling. We've got, I'm sure we'll talk about today, but the change in the cookie laws and things like that. With email, this is primary data. Whilst we've had our own legislation, GDPR being the most recent, or the Privacy and Electronic Communications Act in 2003, which is about when we started, which is there to sort of regulate the use of data. What it does mean is that email is a really useful tool for retention and growth. But like you say, you need to have other channels to provide you with the data in the first place. So I would use email marketing for repeat purchases, or turning lookers to bookers, things like that. So we need to know who they are first before we can send them an email. That's why it gets the highest ROI. So I think the accolade is obviously accepted, but it's also slightly skewed because it's always going to perform better because we actually know who those people are. Whereas on Google or on Facebook or whatever the selected channel, we're kind of guessing. We're doing a generic profile rather than a specific talking to you. And I think that's why email performs very well, but it has to work hand in hand as part of the toolkit. So it has to work with paid search. It's got to work with SEO. It's got to work with other channels for it to succeed. Email marketing for new business isn't as good as it could be. It can support it, but the days of buying databases and spamming out 100,000 people, old school, gone. It's not best practice. Legally, you can still do it B2B, but it's not. The percentages are so low of the conversion rates. It's just a waste of time and effort and money. You can use email marketing, for example, on nurture track journeys if you've driven traffic to a landing page through paid search or SEO or off the back of this podcast, I'm sure, and you can do data capture. You can then serve up emails to follow on with that data capture to nurture that lead or that prospect through the funnel. But to actually use it as a new business generator, it isn't the best channel. But to keep people coming back, keep them engaged, repeat purchase, win back scenarios, absolutely fantastic. And it's why I'm so passionate about it, because it's a really targeted and effective tool that is means you're able to have more of a one-to-one conversation with the recipient than you would if you were perhaps doing social, for example.
No, 100%. And I think that personalisation, that personal conversation that you just mentioned there, probably leads us quite nicely into what makes up the best, what makes a great email campaign. And there's, I'm sure, things we'll touch on like automation and segmentation and personalisation. That's probably a great place to start. No, personalisation. In terms of what goes into what's personalisation for you, Stafford? Because I'm sure it's not just dear Josh at the beginning of an email. There's so many different things you can personalise. yeah, what in terms of what do you where would
Well,
you
it always
start?
makes me laugh. I was just smiling at the dear Josh, the dear Stafford,
Yeah.
like, because I mean that's some people's ideas of personalisation.
Very,
That's,
very lazy.
that's where it stops. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also full of risk as well, because I always laugh. There's a particular brand, there's a very well-known brand. I'm not going to name them, but they inputted my data incorrectly. So I've got a name like Stafford, so
Yeah.
you're going to expect to have typos and things like that. But they actually inputted my data in capital letters.
Right.
So every time they write to us, "Dear Stafford,"
Yeah, like shouting at you.
They're shouting at me, and it's been going on 15 years. I should just unsubscribe,
Yeah.
but anyway, that's a whole other story. It just makes me chuckle. But if you get a typo or "dear blank,"
Yeah.
or someone messes up with the execution that says "dear subscriber" or "dear insert first name,"
Yeah.
we've all seen it. It's a shocker.
100%,
And
yeah.
so that isn't personalisation to me, and everyone knows it's not been written for them. Personalisation to me is about relevant content that's been served up at the right time. So that could be you've got your weekly newsletter going out, or your monthly promotion, or whatever it happens to be. It's not about Dear Josh, it's about serving up content within that email that is relevant to what we know about you. When we've got primary data, and as I say, we're going to move on to this kind of cookieless world, there is going to be certain limitations of the visibility we've got of you as a rounded subscriber, but we know things about you. We know where you, for example, if you bought from us before, we know where you live because we've had to dispatch the products. We know how often you buy. We know whether you're a VIP, you might have spent over a certain value within a certain period of time. So we can start to build up a profile over time, and we also know what products you're buying. So personalisation to me is making sure that what we're promoting to you is relevant to what the interactions are you've had with us. So for example, if you're into fly fishing, if you've just bought a fishing rod from us, I'm not going to promote to you the next week, do you want to buy a new fishing rod? You might really like fly fishing, but what about saying he's bought that fishing rod, so why don't we promote waders or life jacket, tackle, things like that. We work with a company that sells skincare products, for example. They know that if someone buys a particular tub of face cream, it amazes me how much face cream costs, by the way. It's not something I use, as you can probably tell. But a little tub of face cream costs whatever it costs, 75 quid or £1 million, whatever it costs. But they know that if you use this, it's going to make you look 5 years younger, and they know if you use it every night, you're going to need to restock in 6 weeks.
Yeah, so you set up a trigger now.
You set up a trigger, some automation, which is on, you don't have to say, you bought that 5 weeks ago, and you should now reorder it. It's just like, hey, is it time to restock? Or, it just, there's that face cream, look how young you look.
Yeah.
Have some more.
Yeah.
It sounds cheesy, but I'm perhaps using it more as an example, but that is based on that face cream was being sent to the recipient at a period in time after they bought it. So it's relevant timing, and it's relevant content because we know they've bought that before. If I've got someone over here in my same I'm in a department store, as usually, like John Lewis is a really good example. They sell so many different products in so many different departments. You could have 2 people who live in the same house have gone in, and they go into John Lewis for 2 very different reasons. One could be going buy their beauty products, one could be going in to buy things for the garden.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So what we want to do is make sure the person who's gone into John Lewis to buy the beauty products is getting more things related to what they're interested in and what they like, and the other person who's gone in there to buy something else with a different department is getting something that's relevant to them, like new garden shears or a new lawnmower or barbecue or whatever it happens to be. And that relevance then, we talk about barbecue there, we're coming to barbecues here. Apparently May 26th, yesterday.
Here we go. Yeah.
Today, where are we? Yesterday is the trigger point where they suddenly see sales of barbecues go up throughout the year. There's a massive uplift.
We'll have to see if we can find some data.
So,
around
May 26th is the key date. But again, it's about saying, well, I'm not going to keep trying to promote you a barbecue every single month.
Yeah.
November, do you want to buy a barbecue, Josh? Yeah. It's just like
actually 63 of them in my shed.
I know that you've come into my department store and bought something for your garden at some point, so I know you've got a garden.
Yeah.
But I'm now cross-referencing what I know, primary data that I know about you, with secondary data So in that case, related to the weather in the UK, for example. So I'm not going to try and sell you a lawnmower in November or a barbecue in November, but I might be selling you things to kind of jet washers to, clean your patio and things like that. And as we start to get to spring, I start thinking about kind of reopening the garden again and making most of the British summer. So those products start becoming more relevant based on the time of year, as well as your interest, the fact you've got a garden, or even where you live. Should I be promoting click and collect to you when I know from your postcode you don't live within 50 miles of the nearest store? So I wouldn't click and collect wouldn't feature within the email. It would be about free delivery or whatever it may be. So that's personalisation to me. It's a long round houses description, but all of this data is there, and I think what I would say is a lot of organisations, whether it's an e-commerce retailer or a hotel or whatever, they probably don't realise how much valuable data they have within their own systems. They don't know how much is in there and how they can unlock it. And that's where we come in. We help them to unlock the data they've got, because people think, oh, well, I've just got a list of emails, I'll bash something out, batch and blast. And again, we're saying personalisation, dear John, is dead.
Yeah, of course.
For me, batch and blast is dead. One size fits all, send an email out to 100,000 people.
Yeah, it's just not relevant at all to when they...
It's just ticking a box. Yes, I've got that email out by Friday. Yeah. Great, next. Yeah. So I think that's what people now need to consider is segmentation, even on a basic level. People who live nearby, people who live far away, people who've bought from us before versus people who are browsing. Browsers, but I mean people who subscribed but haven't bought. In terms of email,
of course.
Just little bits of segmentation. It doesn't have to be complicated or sophisticated. Someone who's stayed at our hotel before versus someone who hasn't stayed before. Your pre-stay email that goes out should be about, we're looking forward to welcoming you back to the hotel.
Yeah.
Versus, we're looking forward to welcoming you to the hotel. Let's show you what we've got going on.
100%.
Slight nuances in the content can make all the difference, and you need to think about that in the way of how you would do it as a host.
Yeah, 100%. I think that leans. We're sort of coming into segmentation now, and obviously, I guess you can't really successfully do the sort of personalisation without the segmentation and the right sort of data. Which I guess for us, it'd be great to sort of know from you. You must see mistakes all the time that people make with segmentation. Because where do you start? So, what, if you don't mind me asking, what are the sort of three biggest, or the biggest mistake you've seen in a real life case? And I'm sure there's loads with segmenting a legacy database.
Yeah, I think the legacy data is really interesting. I think what I would say, I'll just precursor that with saying a lot of people are just nervous around the D word, around that data word.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of scare stories around GDPR. People are still very fearful of it. They don't need to be. Very fearful, but again, that's where we come in to help guide businesses through that journey of kind of saying, don't be scared of data. Let's look at what you've got and audit it and find out what you've got and how useful it is before we make decisions about how frequently we're going to send an email or what we're going to do. So I think one of the biggest issues that one needs to kind of look at when you've got a database is actually cleansing that database. Actually work out, what have I got? So I've got 100,000 people on there. Great. But where did that data come from? It could have been two marketing managers before me that's kind of collected this. Was it bought in data? Are there lots of hard bounces in that? Did we get hit by a spam bot on the competition? Are all of these emails valid? So I think a lot of people make decisions on email marketing based on not fully knowing the quality of their database. So we normally pull that data out, run it through a validation checker, take out any of the dud emails or the obvious spam bot emails, the hard bounces, the unsubscribes. So you're left with a core. And you might take your 100,000 down to 65,000 or whatever it happens to be. And then making sure we've got the right permissions. A lot of people deleted databases in May 2018, 4 years ago, when GDPR came into action. And a lot of people lost significant amounts of valuable data they didn't need to lose because they were terrified that they didn't have the right permissions, and people misunderstanding the difference between consent and permission. which are two very different things within the data.
So do you think there's a lack of understanding with a lot of marketing departments around GDPR? And is that something that Jurang sort of can support with?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've partnered up with local law firms, a regional law firm called Stephen Scone, who we actually wrote a GDPR guide to, a practical guide to email marketing and GDPR back in the day. And so whilst we're not able to give legal advice, we partnered up with a law firm that was able to do that. We give that as a free download to people, so you go onto our website and have a look. I think there's a lot of confidence building. I think particularly when you've got bigger organisations and the potential fines that might come in place for breaches and for you misusing data. I think that's a lot of things people are fearful of. But actually, the simplicity of it is, if you've got a customer, the majority of the times you can carry on sending email marketing to that if you can prove they're a customer. So in that data cleanse I was talking about, would identify who's a customer and who isn't, or what's the source of this data. And you do usually end up with a list of, these are customers, brilliant. These are people who've subscribed because I can see they came in through the web form. And we've got a few here that we don't know. And generally speaking, I'm fairly pragmatic about it. I'd say, well, if we don't know where they came from, let's just not send to them. Let's not unsubscribe them. Let's just remove them from the system.
Just suppress them in the database.
Suppress them, and if they add themselves back on again, brilliant. But if we can't guarantee where they've come from, let's just play it safe. But so I think one of the sort of the mistakes around personalisation, segmentation, and the like is not having a good handle on the data.
Sure.
And I think some of that is also driven by fear of the board as well. I mean, we talk about fear of the law in GDPR, but a lot of boards, and I spend quite a lot of time working with sort of the board level directors who are still setting KPIs around what I would call vanity metrics, like how big's the database? What's the open rate?
Yeah, it's not driving bottom line at all.
It's focusing on the wrong things, because I could grow your database from nothing to 100,000 in the next 2 weeks for you.
Yeah, but how do you commercialise that?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But those 100,000 people might have no interest in your product or service. But you can go to your boss and say, "Hey, I've got 100,000 people," and they go, "Well done, fantastic, good work, Josh." And it's just not relevant at all.
Yeah.
Surely it's better to have 5,000 people who are all fully qualified and ready to buy, and we're actually measuring what the conversion rates are, like you guys do. In terms of when you're running a search campaign and things like that, you're not basing it on a number of clicks you get through. You're basing on actually what did that convert to.
Yeah, exactly that. You're looking at the ROAS, aren't you? And there's say different intent with different audiences. Exactly that. So I guess that we've sort of covered personalization and segmentation. But another thing I'm really interested in to find out about is automation. So we're in a world where there's a lot of noise, businesses are time poor, marketers are busier than ever with so many different channels. So automation, I suppose, can create marketing efficiency. Now, I suppose for you, where do the opportunities lie with automation? We deal with a lot of e-commerce businesses. And so I suppose from automation, where do you see the opportunities for an e-commerce brand?
Yeah, I think from the e-com point of view, I mean, automation is the future of email marketing as far as I'm concerned, because there is so much you can do with automation. And I would say it's probably the most underutilized and misunderstood area of someone's email platform or e-commerce platform. There is so much we can do with it. It's what we jokingly at Jurang call the silent sales force.
Yeah.
It's there to take a lot of weight off your shoulders and ticks away in the background, so you've got fewer things to remember, and it can make sure there's personalization with everyone that's on your database, because it can be driven by their actions on your site.
Yeah, is there a tool in e-com, in automation? Because there are so many popping up now. You've got HubSpot, MailChimp, you've got Klaviyo, which is a big player now turning up, and a lot of our clients are favouring Klaviyo. Is it horses for courses? I mean, should brands and e-commerce brands be looking at what's our budget, what's our objective, and then choosing the platform, or is it a case of Klaviyo is a market leader with SMS support and HubSpot's got a great CRM. They all have their USPs. So how do you feel about horses?
Absolutely right. I think you're right. Horses for course is probably the best way to describe it. I think on a platform level, if you're talking about the actual software level, So I'm probably going to draw lots of controversy. We'll have these listeners will be kind of leaving messages telling me they don't agree. But they're pretty much the same. They're the same. On a mechanical level, they're all the same. The difference is going to be into the UX, it's going to be size, it's going to be the ability to integrate with your e-commerce system. For me, I would very much look at what's my business, what e-commerce platform have I chosen for this business, because you will choose the right one for your business, and maybe it includes stock control, maybe it doesn't, maybe it integrates into something else. Once you've chosen that as your main hub, you're then looking at the email marketing element. So it's then looking at what are the options for email marketing platforms or marketing automation systems that will integrate with my platform. You may want to go down the route of, I want something there's a plugin for it, there's an off-the-shelf plugin.
Sure.
So where Klaviyo have done a brilliant job, absolutely fantastic, is they tethered their horse to the Shopify.
Yes.
Yeah, the cards, yeah. So Shopify, is absolutely accelerated across the SME market globally. Absolutely wiping the floor with Magento and the like, that was one of the market leaders for
even into brands like Gymshark now using it,
and much bigger brands now using it, and that's kind of where they started. But much bigger brands are now using Shopify, and because it has a very good plugin for Klaviyo, it is a natural choice to use, and it is really powerful, and it's fantastic, and it's easy, and it's simple. And I think firstly, you need to make sure it integrates with your e-commerce system. If it doesn't integrate, automation is very, very, very difficult. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it makes your life a lot harder than it needs to be. It has to be easy, and if it's easy, people will do more of it.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? So,
absolutely.
So businesses will do more of it when they realise how simple it is. But it's about making sure that they can integrate the two. In terms of then what the journeys are. So I think in terms of budget, you might have different platforms that integrate better with other platforms. You may have a B2C and a B2B arm. So say HubSpot, for example, could be something really good to use if you've got a B2B element, the CRM system, for example.
Why do you think, in terms of, I know we're focusing on e-com, but why do you think HubSpot is so great for B2B?
Well, I think it's largely it's by its CRM elements, which probably lends itself more to those sort of higher value, lower volume conversations. And I could be wrong. I'm sure there are many millions of people using HubSpot, so I don't want to kind of presume to know what everyone's using it for. But for my mind, we use HubSpot as within our business. HubSpot it's got a fantastic CRM tool, it's got a fantastic automation tool, but it's got a good pipeline deal management side of things. With an e-commerce platform, you don't necessarily need pipeline management. You have the equivalent within the e-com platform where you've got your funnel, you've got the abandoned carts, and you've got everything you need. So it just alters it slightly based on the product that you're looking to promote.
Of course.
And there's much bigger ones like Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and there's loads out there. But it's horse of course, and it will come down to what you like working with. But I'd say if you like working with it, you like the support that comes with it, and it's easy, it makes your life easier, then start playing with it and automate it. And I think for e-commerce particularly, automation is a fantastic tool that people shouldn't be scared of. I think most people probably know about basket abandonment, and I think the stats on it, you do correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure the stats were something like, having basket abandonment in recycles approximately 60% of abandoned baskets. Yeah. So, you get 60% of your abandoned basket level within Shopify, potentially reclaiming 60% of those.
It's big numbers, and I think
for a very small investment, that's a very big conversion rate.
Massively, yeah. And I think if we've got two clients we've just implemented or supported implementing Klaviyo with Magento and Shopify, and exactly the same. So we're running Facebook ads campaign, paid search, Google Shopping as well. And as you say, the power you have with the people that have abandoned carts, then pull them back into the sales process with personalised content. It's incredibly valuable. So yeah, we've covered sort of automation, segmentation, and I suppose sort of towards the end of a campaign, we've got the mechanics here now. It's really about how do we prove to the board the value of the campaign, and how do we measure the success of a campaign with email. And I suppose it's easy for us to sit there and say ROI and revenue, but there are so many other data points and metrics, aren't there? What are the most important for you? If I'm going to the board of an e-commerce brand, I need to prove the value of email marketing. Is it lifetime value? Is it customer acquisition costs? Or a blend of them all?
I think it's all of them, and I think, as I said to you before, email marketing is one tool in the marketer's toolbox. I'm not going to sit here and preach that email marketing is the best channel and the only channel you should use, because we know it's not true. But where it is, you think about a sports team. You put your best players on the pitch for the game that you're playing or the team you're playing against that week. So as a marketer, you need to be able to pull those levers. So what we want to look at is that commonality. So we might, on an individual channel level, manage things like, we may look at the vanity metrics like open rates and click-through rates. I always keep an eye on them, but I don't really make any decisions on them. I might look at how many people we've added to the database, or I might look at kind of the click-throughs or the unique opens. But the same with performance marketing. When you're looking at PPC or SEO and running campaigns like that, you're going to be looking at very particular metrics on, particular ads, what the bid rate is, etc.
100%.
But what the commonalities are is we need to be looking at the conversions. So I think if I'm looking at email marketing, let's just keep it on email. One is I want to look at what's the financial contribution. So e-commerce is very easy to do that. In a B2B world, it's a lot harder because we've got that disconnect between the inquiry coming in and the sales cycle taking 3, 4 months, 6 months, whatever. In an e-commerce world, it's a lot easier to put a financial value on last click attribution, but I also want to be looking at attribution as a whole in terms of if email marketing had a touch point within a journey. Did someone receive an email, look at something, go away, come back the next day and make a purchase? And you want to do that with all channels, really don't you? You want to make sure, what's our direct contribution, what's our attribution to the channel, because then we get your return on advertising spends equivalent. We want to be looking at lifetime value of a customer, and I think that's where potentially something like HubSpot, where you've got the CRM element in there or the sales element in there. But you can also do within other metrics platforms where you need to be looking at an individual person and looking at what is their lifetime value for us. I wouldn't necessarily pay too much attention to what's the lifetime value of their email address, because as we all know, you could be josh@hotmail.com this week. 6 months' time, you go, I'm fed up with Microsoft, I'm going to go to Gmail.
Yeah, of course, happens all the time.
You haven't changed, and your account is still valid. You still live in the same house, you still pay the same credit card, but your email address account. If we purely look at the email element, we think we've lost you, and your lifetime has only been 18 months, but actually you continue to be a customer for the next 20 years. So I think being able to look at those metrics in a more centralized location where multi-channel data is being fed into it, and understanding that you and I sitting here together might have different touch points with a brand at different times, and I might click on a paid search term, I might click on an email, I might see something in a social feed. I've got multiple touch points, and it doesn't mean, just because I clicked on an email, I'm an email person, so therefore I'll only get offers on email, or my lifetime value is based on how much I spent by clicking through email. You need to look at me in a 360 view, which is a lot harder than people make out. People kind of say, you need to look at a 360-degree view of this.
Make it sound very simple.
Data. It sounds really easy, but it's a lot harder. There's a lot of blind spots that we can't control. So that be my time. What I'm going to flip it around to you. I'm going to flip it around. You probably weren't expecting that, but from your side, I'm talking very much on the email marketing side. From a performance marketing point of view, what do you see as the most important metric? How do you? I'm genuinely interested.
No,
I'm genuinely interested because from email marketing, I know what I've been doing for 20 years. But what do you guys look at?
I think to be honest with you, it depends very much on the brand. So I'll try and focus on e-commerce, but. Again, we have some clients who are really focused on profitability, so it's a really profit-driven business, and for them it's ROAS, so return on ad spend, quite simple. We've got some others who are looking to, in a hyper growth phase, like big e-com brand in a hyper growth phase, and need as many new customers as possible. For them, it's less about profitability and more about cost per acquisition. So how many new users can we get in at the lowest rate possible? There are others with a revenue-driven model, and it's the focus on purely on rev and conversions. So again, coming back to, as we talked earlier, it's very much horses for courses, and it depends on what the client's business objective is, and we kind of tailor our reporting around that. So yeah, I guess there's no one-size-fits-all approach. Yeah, it's kind of the same sort of thing.
Yeah, it depends on what's important for the business themselves, what their strategy is, and like I say, I mean, sometimes boards do get it right and they measure the right things, and other times they maybe just need to be told a slightly different way. For sure. That is out there that they might want to consider, and sometimes they listen and sometimes they don't. But I think I think just going back to the kind of metrics. Sorry if I'm kind of just revisiting something, but
good. Please do.
Things like with email, we've had our own sort of been hampered in our own way, and I know we've been talking offline about the future and what's happening with kind of the cookie world and things like that. But the Apple privacy came in back in last year with iOS 15.
Yeah, it made life very difficult for marketers.
Yeah, it made it very difficult for email marketing because it's a bit of a bonkers way of working. But for those of you that don't know, it's any emails going into an Apple controlled domain, not necessarily having the open rates blocked. So if I just go back a little bit, open rates are determined by a small image, a 1 pixel by 1 pixel image that is in every email that goes out that's unique to that email and unique to that person. If someone has images switched off by default, that image that tracks the open doesn't open, and therefore it doesn't think the email's been opened. Okay.
Yeah.
With the Apple updates, that meant that if they didn't open the images, or they weren't allowed in that to track, then it wouldn't show that someone had opened. However, the way it works is it takes a copy of the email into the Apple domain and shows it all as being opened. Every single image has been downloaded. It downloads it all onto the Apple server.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you open it multiple times, instead of it retrieving the images and showing as an open every time, it won't, because it's opening a cached version of that image from the Apple server. And sometimes the Apple server will open it the moment it receives the email. Sometimes it'll open it a week later.
Right.
And sometimes it will open it when the recipient actually opens the email. Very unpredictable, and depends on.
Really inconsistent.
Really inconsistent, which basically means any of the data coming from an Apple controlled domain could show a massive variance in open rates, from being hugely overstated to hugely understated. So one of the ways in which we do it, we can separate out what we know as iOS open. So if it's been opened on an iPhone or an iPad or an Apple laptop or iMac, we can work out from our tracking which ones they are. We take those out of the reporting, work out what the percentage stats are for the non-Apples, and apply that to the Apples. It's a bit of a fudge to work it out.
Yeah.
But the real downside for marketers is their vanity metrics get completely screwed up. Either it shows that they're doing massively better than they are or massively worse. But also, if you want to run win-back campaigns and things like that, you might be excluding someone from a win-back campaign. So win-back is where someone has been inactive. You may not send them a win-back email because actually Apple is showing that they keep opening every single one of your emails. So they're actually become a VIP because they open every single one.
Right, because the data's skewed.
Because the data's skewed.
Your strategy is out the window.
Your strategy is out the window. And that means that you could be missing out on winning people back, and you might be making decisions on your strategy based on, well, I get loads and loads of people open my emails, but no one clicks on it. So there must be something wrong with my content. Let's bring the content writers in and let's get some more. So it's about bringing the evidence together to make decisions rather than doing it off one strand. I just thought that was important to bring that out, because I know that it's easy to say that email is primary data, so it's pretty straightforward, but it has its own challenges.
Yeah, there's so many nuances within it, I suppose. Yeah,
sure.
I think the last thing I'd love to know, Steph, is I'm going to put you on the spot here. So if I'm an email marketing brand, an e-commerce brand, what's the one? And let's say I've got a database of 10,000 people. What's the one thing I can do to move the needle? What should I be focusing my time and energy on as an e-com brand to move the needle with email marketing? What's going to make the highest impact?
Cool. Highest impact. Are you sending email marketing at the moment? Are you doing it at the moment?
If I'm an e-com brand, yes, we've got a database. We're sending out email, but is there something we can focus our time and energy on to really move the needle? Is there segmentation, automation, personalization, tracking? Is there anything that you think that is vitally important for e-commerce brands?
Well, I'm going to give you two things.
Yeah.
One is the data cleanse and segmentation.
Yeah, okay, great.
So one is you've got 10,000 people, whatever it is, you're doing email marketing at the moment. Let's to move that dial. Let's see if we can get some segmentation out. So I would always do a data cleanse anyway, just to get rid of some of the dross. And if you are being measured by your board on metrics, you can make your percentages change by just getting rid of some dross. So that's great.
Yeah.
But segmentation is probably the most important in terms of actually having a look at how could I start to speak to people more in a more personalised way, even if I'm grouping people together in terms of buyers versus lookers. Or the second point is the automation point that we talked about earlier on, which is bringing elements of automation in there. You will be so surprised about how little effort it takes and how big the returns are comparative to the effort. Basic things like pre and post stay emails. So we talk about e-commerce particularly, aren't we? So it could be things like basket abandonment or post purchased, going to advocacy. Moving people from first to second purchase, lots of very little. They don't have to be sophisticated. And what I would say about segmentation, about automation, because I've given you two, and you only asked me for one, but what I would say happens with both of them, my biggest bit of advice I could give to anyone is start simple.
Yeah.
People get paralysed by fear of I need to be absolutely sophisticated this with multiple parts to this, and I can't do anything until I've got my 20-stage marketing automation set up, and I've got my 6 different persona segments that I'm creating, and they don't do anything. Whereas why not just do something simple? People who've got a local postcode by people who haven't. People who've bought from you before by people who haven't. So in e-com, you can tell that very easily by the fact they'll have a customer number in the database. So it's just a simple if statement. It's if they've got a customer number, they're a customer, send them this. If they haven't, send them that. Start simple and work your way up to it, because that's the whole point of that automation, is that evolution.
Yeah, so you continually evolve. That was actually, you sort of answered my question there in terms of, with automation, does a lot of the work need to be front-loaded, setting up workflows and things like that, or is it something that can be built up gradually? But I suppose it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on that.
Bit of both, really. I mean, I think what I would say is, once you've got a decent email marketing template in whatever your platform of choice is, whether it's Klaviyo or HubSpot or one of the others, once you've got that template in there, they are relatively easy to duplicate and change an image, change some content. Yeah. So once you've done it for one thing, your basket abandonment, let's try it out. Brilliant. Okay. Do we need to change anything in it? No. Okay. Well, let's replicate that, and instead of applying that to a basket abandon, let's apply it to the rule, which is really easy to do in Klaviyo, like someone who hasn't purchased anything within 90 days, but has bought something before.
That's there's so many things that you can, I guess, like you say there's so many opportunities to do things in increments to get you started.
Just get started, build up, and you'll find that you will end up getting really sophisticated email marketing packages in time, or email marketing programs in time, but they don't have to be that from the start, and it becomes yours, because what works for that brand down the road might not work for your brand, or what works for that big multinational corporate retailer may not work for you here. There could be some stuff you can borrow, trial out. I really like that nice touch they've done there. Maybe I can pop that in. But it will become bespoke to your business and your brand, and you can then start to layer up, because you've got this automation. But it's, if I give you, I'm going to come out of e-com, but I'll talk you a real cool bit of personalization with automation within a hotel setting. Pre and post stay emails. So someone who's going to check in 5 days' time. So it automatically triggers an email to anyone whose next check-in date is in plus 3 days. Okay.
Yeah.
So we could do that really easy from database. Brilliant. Send out that email. The way, obviously, what within that email you're going to upsell. You're looking at, book your table for dinner. Do you want flowers in the room?
Spa,
Whatever. Spa, round of golf, whatever. But you can actually also then personalise that based on, not on, dear Josh, we're looking forward to seeing you to stay in this room. Blah, blah,
Not
blah.
that inspiring. Yeah.
Not that inspiring. But how about the fact that you booked through booking.com, and I didn't. I booked direct. You booked through booking.com. They've lost a lot more margin by you booking through booking.
Like 30%.
Well, some big percentages which do make can make things quite considerably different. So they'll be saying, "Thank you for booking through one of our partners, booking.com," because they can see source of booking. Thanks for booking through one of our partners. If you book with us directly next time, we'll give you a bottle of champagne in the room, or a bottle of Prosecco. It costs them £7.50 for a bottle of Prosecco to put in the room, as opposed to a £200 a night room where they're paying, say, 20%.
They're losing,
Suddenly there's 40 quid. So, there's a 40 quid, £7.50. It's better for them to incentivise you with a bottle of Prosecco. They're not going to incentivise me because I booked directly, so they're just like, great. But that's a post-day email, should I say, and that's just a simple way of, it's a personalisation based on how you booked and an automation based on when you checked out.
And it's such a simple tactic, isn't it? You're giving a consumer, they feel like they're getting something, a nice offer, you're saving yourself 40%. And that's just one element of automation that you could set up very, very quickly. And
then you can layer that up. So you start layering up. You go into things like, you talk about lifetime value earlier on. So I can now see it's the same person. It's, I've done some data work and see it's you, where you are. See you've stayed with us before, but you booked through booking.com. Oh, that's a bit of that's not so good here, but I can also see you're a VIP because you've stayed here like every month for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So maybe you're staying for work or whatever it happens to be. So why are you booking through booking.com? So maybe I can then layer that content up even further because I can see if total spend is over X amount of pounds, so over £1,000. They get the VIP content. So it's then an extra bit of content in there as hey, and why don't you join our frequent travellers program where you get a whole host of extra benefits, and obviously one of the caveats that book directly, so
there's so many opportunities. So I think the message is really, if you're an e-com brand or even a hotel brand, you're not using automation yet, you should be.
Absolutely, use automation. Don't be scared of it. I think things that people are scared of: automation and data. No need to be scared. There's lots of resource out there, really good platforms out there, and the platforms like Klaviyo, like HubSpot, have got fantastic resources that can help you. And just try it out, because I think if you go into it thinking I've got to have it all perfect, it's got to be this multi-layered program, just do something basic and take the win and go, do you know what? It's a win. I'm going to do the next one. Do the next one. Do the next. Be kind to yourself and do more of what works. And if something doesn't work, don't beat yourself up. Just don't do that again. Do something else.
Right, offers a learning.
Yeah, exactly. Just like that didn't work on the way in which I put that content in on a post-purchase email. So,
yeah, perfect. Well, look, Staff, thanks so much for your time. It's been super insightful.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No, anytime. If people want to find you online in Jurang, where can they find you on social and the website?
Find us on Jurang.com, so JARRANG.com. Always misspelled. Find us on Jurang.com. You see the social channels on there. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Insta. Have a look at us. If you want some free resources, Jurang.com/resources. The GDPR book that I mentioned earlier is in there as well. Free download that will hopefully help to guide people through that process. Other bits on there about automation as well. So have a look at it. Anything anyone wants, drop us a line.
Sounds good. Perfect. Well, enjoy your weekend and let's go grab a beer.
Let's do it.
Perfect.
Thanks, Josh.
Cool.